Adhyayan has 400 partner schools and has worked with over 7,000 government schools. And in recent times, we've had over 1,300 educators through introductory webinars on virtual classrooms and intensive Tech for Teacher courses, and over 100 leaders through our framework on readiness for online teaching and learning. We're very happy to have non-partner schools as well as educators engaging with us today, and we hope to develop a deeper partnership with you all. Um, and this webinar is being done in partnership with ASCD. ASCD empowers educators to achieve excellence in learning, teaching, and leading so that every child is healthy, safe, engaged, supported, as well as challenged. Comprising of over 1 lakh member stakeholders from more than 129 countries, the ASCD community also includes 71 affiliate organizations. And we're proud to be one of ASCD's affiliates. And today we have one of the star members of ASCD with us, Myron Dueck. Over the past 22 years, Myron has gained teaching and administrative experience in both Canada and New Zealand in subjects ranging from grades 4 to 12. Beginning in 2006, Myron developed a number of grading, assessment, and reporting systems with his classes, in which students have greater opportunity to show what they understand and adapt to the feedback they receive, and play a significant role in the reporting of that learning. His best-selling book, Grading Smarter, Not Harder, Assessment Strategies That Motivate Kids and Help Them Learn, was released by ASCD in 2014. He lives in British Columbia, Canada, with his wife and 2 children, and he's also the vice principal for assessment and innovation in his local school district. Welcome you, Myron. We're so happy to have you again, and thank you for being with us again. I think, like Jayashree said, we had an amazing session the last time. It was very interactive. We got to learn so many practices. You sent us a lot of handouts, which the educators could actually implement in their classrooms, and we really got to learn a lot. So over to you, Myron.
Thank you very much, Vidushi. I appreciate the introduction. I am coming to you from British Columbia this morning, and I want to welcome everybody once again to this session. We have about an hour together, and I want to. It will be full, and like I said last time, I am quite a ways away from you. I won't do the same introduction as before, except for just a few slides. Coming from this far away, it is 5 a.m. here, and it's very dark outside. So I bought a special light. Now, I was going to put the photo in my presentation, but I just realized I didn't. So I'm going to try this version of it. This is my, can you see that, Vidushi?
Yes, Myron. Yeah.
Second place.
So that is a special light I have just purchased for doing presentations at 5 o'clock in the morning. I hope the light adjustment is okay for people. You are welcome to comment whether the light should be warmer or cooler. Like I said, I'm coming from Summerland, British Columbia. It is a nice place to live. I don't know why there is this, I don't know if you see it, there is this splotch in the middle of my screen. Now it's on the edge of the school. It's on each slide, and that has never happened before. So I don't know what that is doing there. But some things change quite quickly. Vidushi, you mentioned that I was the district vice principal of assessment and innovation. That is true until a week and a half ago. That position is no more because they asked me if I would go back to Summerland Secondary School and be the vice principal of an actual school where we have students returning next week. So that is what, oh, now it's gone. That is what I am going to be doing. And so when I put in the chat room that we are a little bit nervous, we have students coming back on September 10th on a special schedule. So we will see how that goes. Last time that I was presenting, people were some people were interacting on Twitter, and I really appreciated that. And you are welcome to do so again. I have no problems if, thank you, Geeta. I have no problems if people have a conversation while this is going. So today we're going to talk about resilience, and I want to make sure that people understand. I don't think that resilience is a new topic. It's been around for a while. There is no shortage of reading materials on resilience. And I want to say that I am not sitting here today in British Columbia saying that I am a resilience expert. I don't think I am. I speak a fair bit about assessment and about how we grade. And one of the things that I see is that there is a lot to do with resilience in how we assess students. So I am looking over at the topic of resilience, and I'm bringing some of the ideas over to assessment. So I am a learner when it comes to resilience, not an expert. And I want to make sure people understand that. So I think all of us have a little taste of resilience somewhere along the line. COVID has certainly taught us, I'm sure, something about being resilient. And this is me. I play on a ice hockey team. I don't know how many ice hockey teams you have in India. We have lots here in Canada. Well, what happened to me in one game is I went against the boards. These are called the boards, the thing with the writing on it. And that little black thing down there is the puck. And another player and I were going for the puck, and I crashed into the boards. That evening at 1 o'clock in the morning, we found out that I had a cracked bone in my ankle from crashing into the boards. So for a little better view, that's the little tiny crack right there. Well, I had to go to a talk in the Dominican Republic 5 days later. And I thought I was going to cancel. And they're like, please don't cancel, Myron. Please don't cancel. So I got this knee stroller, and I was coaching my son's volleyball team. My son used the knee stroller for other things, which he liked to do. And I decided to fly. I was sitting in the airport, and I thought that my leg cast had a halo over it, and that was just the lighting in the airport. But anyway, I went to the Dominican Republic, and that was a very, very difficult journey. But if you ever find yourself in the same situation, you can attach your suitcase to the knee stroller and pull it like a trailer. So anyway, resilience is something I think we all get a little flavor of from time to time. But guess what? This presentation is about to be over because I have found resilience. We don't even have to read books. It's for sale. Right here, I found it just the other day. It comes in 90 vegetable capsules and is available on Amazon. So that's it, everybody. Thanks very much for joining our session on resilience. You can buy it in a bottle. Okay, maybe not. What is this thing that we call resilience? So when you go looking around, there are different definitions of it. And the one that I want to pay attention to today comes from the American Psychological Association. And they say that resilience is this. Resilience, in part, is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity. And I want that to sink in a little bit. The process of adapting well in the face of adversity. I think that we are all facing adversity right now, and I think some of us feel like we're adapting better on some days than other days. But we're going to use this as a definition. Now, if I was doing this session live for you, I would do this. I would give everybody one of these sticky notes. They're like, I don't have any on my desk, but you probably know what they are. It's right there. It's a sticky note. Here's what I would ask people to do. I would ask you to put something on the sticky note that you do as a hobby, or that you believe you are quite strong at doing it. And even if it's not education. So I would like a few people to put in the chat room what they are a hobby or what they are good at. I will start. I am involved in welding steel as a hobby. I do metal work. I can show you. I welded this volleyball player here. I don't know if you can see that, but this is something I do as a hobby, okay? Would anybody else like to share? Oh, you draw and paint? Zenticles. Growing vegetables. I would like to know what zenticles are. Weaving. Sky gazing. Cool. Watercolors. Look at all these things. Yeah, I figured it was sky. Observe birds. Look at all these hobbies. Isn't this great? Okay, so we have lots of people that are tangles or doodles. Okay. So here's a question. Now, if we were doing this once again live, I would ask people, and this is a activity you can do with any group. The next thing I would ask you to do, and we don't have time for it this morning. I would do this if I was here for the day. Can you list 3 things that are important that you have learned about your hobby? So for example, the person who mentioned observing birds in trees, you might say, and you can put it in if you like, but you might say something like, well, here, let me give you an example. If somebody said baking bread, they might say, well, I need to have the right flour. I want to talk about that. I have learned about the yeast and the rising of the bread, and the temperature is very important. These are things that you might share. Here's the question, and you can do this with any group. So whether it is geometric designs, fabric painting, watercolors, crafting decor, growing vegetables on the garden, here's a question I have for you. To what extent has your hobby involved learning from mistakes? How much have mistakes played a role? Does anybody care to answer? All the time, I'm reading. Huge role. Almost all of it. Constantly. You should see the chat room there, everybody. This is it, right? So here's another question. Has it involved developing some degree of resiliency? I've killed lots of plants by overwatering. Yeah, I know. I did that too. Now, Kavita, my family doesn't let me near the garden. So here's the thing. Of course, these things have involved some degree of resiliency. And I don't know about you guys, but as a parent, and these are my children. That's Elijah and Sloan and Ryder the dog. And my partner Tracy. As a parent, I want my own kids to develop competencies by learning from mistakes. I want that. So I also want them to develop a high degree of resilience. I even think that this COVID pandemic is going to do that for them a little bit. They are one day going to talk about this time that they had to get through some difficulties. There's no question. So this is one of the reasons why I am okay with my daughter helping me change the oil on this ATV that we have. Yes, she is frustrated, for sure. It did not go well. I think you can see that. This is not going well. But this, I believe, is how we build resilience. So with that, I want to talk today a little bit about how do we define it, which we've done some. Where do we see examples of this? Earlier in the year, or late last fall, sorry, I visited the Holocaust camp of Auschwitz-Birkenau. And I don't know how many people have visited a place like this, but it is beyond troubling as a place to visit. And I was at the very same time reading a book, and I would encourage you to read it if you are interested in this topic. It is called By Chance Alone by Max Eisen. And he was a young boy, I think he's going to say in the interview, maybe 15 years old, when he was sent to Auschwitz, and he survived it. And yes, Geeta, I'm sorry. Yes, I know the kind of feelings it must bring back. It's a terrible place to visit, but I think important. So this morning, I want us to hear from Max Eisen. He is, of course, much older than 15 years old now, but he speaks about his time in Auschwitz in his book, and he has I captured a little bit of an interview with him. Here it is.
Max Eisen was just 15 years old when officers arrived at his home in a former Czechoslovakia and ordered his entire family to pack up and leave. They were deported to Auschwitz, where all but Max were eventually exterminated. More than 7 decades after his liberation, he details it all in his book, By Chance Alone, a remarkable true story of courage and survival at Auschwitz. And Max Eisen joins us now here in our studios. It's a great pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
And I must say, having read your book, I cannot believe you are alive. It is a truly, I mean, it's a miracle you're alive. You were 9 months in Auschwitz?
I was approximately 9 months.
9 months in...
From May the 8th, I believe, to January the 12th.
What kinds of things did you do to just live another day?
Well, you needed to have a certain skills and a preparation, and you need a tremendous amount of resilience to survive Auschwitz. And I had all kinds of skills. We walked about maybe 150 kilometers. This took us about 3 days. Can you imagine, in snow up to your ankles, thousands of people, and many in wooden clogs. 5 of us hooked our arms together so that you are a unit, and you have to carry some people. All you needed to have is a will to go on, and you put one foot in front of the other. So luck and resilience played a big part.
I'm a history teacher by trade in the classroom. That's what I did for most of my teaching career. And it is sometimes through listening to people like this who say, to survive something like that, I needed a certain set of skills. I needed preparation, and I needed a will to go on. I think a little bit more about these things these days, where I think we are having our skills stretched to the limit. We are having to prepare things we haven't had to prepare for, and we need a will to go on. And yet, I don't think I can begin to understand the kind of challenges Max Eisen experienced. So sometimes I feel emboldened when I look at throughout history when people have had much more difficulty than I'm having, and they found a way. So the good news is, and I think Max Eisen suggests this, we can develop resilience. In his book, Resilient, Rick Hansen, PhD, talks about this. In his podcast, he talks about it as well, and I have included this information in the handouts I sent to Vidushi. The good news is, everybody, we can develop our psychological muscles. The good news is that about 2/3 of our psychological development is not hereditary. We can develop and nurture it. And there are specific ways that we can do it. And I want to share a few of those today. And then I want to share with you 3 examples of ways we have tried to do this in the classroom. And that will make up our hour, I am sure. So here's the thing. Resilience is most necessary for the people least supported in our society. And I probably can't think of a time when somebody was less supported than someone like Max Eisen, a young Jewish boy in the Holocaust. He has no supports, maybe a few by his friends in the camp, but none for human rights, none for economic support, none for family support. His family's all gone. So I think when Max speaks about resilience, he is authentic in that he is the least supported. And Dr. Hansen says the essence of resilience is this adaptation, when we are adapting to changing conditions. And I think this is true during the COVID time, and it's going to be true for our students moving forward. So here's a question for the chat room. One of the writers in Scientific American wrote, being resilient is kind of being like Gumby. I have a question. Does anybody know who Gumby is? And could you describe Gumby? Have you heard of Gumby? He's a character. No, I didn't think most people had. Gumby was one of the first cartoon characters on television. He was made out of clay and he was bendable. Here, let me show you Gumby.
Yep, he's on the moon all right. I've got to go after him.
In every episode, Gumby faces a problem, and Gumby is stretched to the limit, but somehow he bounces back. Yes, the penguin. Yes, there are so many people in the chat room are writing about other characters. Yeah, there are many of these types of characters in our storytelling. Well, it's interesting. The United States Marine Corps has Gumby as its mascot because Gumby is always flexible. He like SpongeBob SquarePants, maybe a little bit. I don't know. He bends to it. So this brings us, yes, because Gumby overcomes, Gumby rises above, Gumby is okay with the problems that come his way. So here's the question. How can we foster resilience in our classrooms? This is where I want to go next. I went looking for a framework, okay? I went looking for a structure, and I found one. I found a good article, and I have included it in the handouts, okay? Dennis Charney and Stephen Southwick have written about resilience in a great book called Resilience, the Science of Mastering Life's Greatest Challenges. And they have some good news. Yes, sometimes life feels like we just want to throw in the towel, to give up, to quit. And this is when we're faced with adversity, tragedy, or stress. But just like Dr. Hansen said, people can train their brain to be more resilient. So what they do in their article is they come up with 10 things. And I'm just going to mention a few, but I want you, as you listen to each of these, I'm going to ask in the chat room if any of these have played an important role for you lately in this challenge of COVID. So for example, they say, keep a positive attitude and find something that you are in control of. Or they say, reframe your stressful thoughts. We don't always have to look at failure as a bad thing or struggle as a bad thing, because it is essential for growth. In some ways, they say, develop your moral compass. What are your core beliefs, or what you really hold on to? Maybe some people have done number 4. Find a resilient role model, somebody you can look up to in times of stress. Or, oh, yes, face your fears. Harnessing the power of struggle is an important ingredient in building self-esteem. Let's scroll up a little bit. There's a few others that jumped out at me. One is this idea of developing coping skills, or maybe you want to develop a supportive social network, a little bit like finding a resilient role model. This has been very important for me. I have needed to prioritize my physical well-being, to make sure that I get out and I get exercise and I improve things like my mood and immunity and so on. And finally, maybe you need to play to your strengths, do what you're good at or what you enjoy doing. And I appreciate the chat room lighting up here with people. Yes, please share. What are some things that you've personally done in this area? I see that people are finding a resilient role model. I see that people are going back to a fitness routine, long neglected. Fiza, if that is correct, I am similar to you. I started riding my bicycle a lot more. So yes, play to your strength, praying twice a day, for sure. So look at, as that chat room fills with ideas, these are all things that I think are very, very important. So back to your national education policy. We discussed this in the last session a little bit. There are items in your national education policies that speak to resilience, that we need to recognize people are resilient because we all have unique capabilities, just like people are putting in the chat room, playing to your strengths, looking for things that give you confidence. Also, there is a degree like Gumby. We need to be flexible. There is also idea that education is holistic. It's the complete person. It's a complete being. We also have to recognize, it says it right here in your national policy, life skills, communication, cooperation, teamwork, and resilience. And later this session, we are going to talk a little bit about formative over summative, and this idea that we want to get away from coaching students on what to say, what to do. And finally, I think we have to continue to look at equity and inclusion when it comes to resilient, because like Dr. Hansen says in his book, the people least supported need the most resiliency. So let's make sure we are inclusive. So I have not come up with this idea of social emotional learning, although I think it is very, very important. I have included this framework in the handouts that you have got, and the Castle people have done a lot around what is most important in social emotional learning, self-awareness, self-management, many of those things that we just looked at on the 10 items. And these need to be available in our classrooms, our schools, our homes and communities. I encourage you, we are not going to spend a lot of time on this now, but I encourage you to look at this framework. I think it is a very good one for discussing social emotional learning, and I'm sure many of you have come across the Castle work already on social emotional learning. What I want to most talk about today are a few areas of social emotional learning that I think are very, very important in assessment. And there are four things. Number one, that we are all diverse in our learning styles and preferences. That we need to be like Gumby or the other penguin character, flexible to student needs, timelines, special challenges they might face. I think that it's true that engagement is related to passion, to relevancy, to choice. And finally, students need to be active in their own learning. So as I share with you a few assessment examples in the rest of this session, what I want to do is I want to show you how they link to these four ideas, okay? And if you have a question that comes up with any of these, I would be more than happy to try to answer them and also try to stay on time. If I have no problems hanging around a little bit after as well. Okay. The first thing I want to talk about is the idea of building an ongoing test structure. Not testing as a one-day event, but testing over a period of time. And there's lots of research to support testing over time, not in one moment. So in your national policy, and yes, I went looking, you have a number of things that are said about this. One is that there is a belief that flexibility and choice will be important in the education system of the future. They talk about your board exams and this idea that students should be allowed to take them on at least 2 occasions, perhaps one main exam and one for improvement if needed. And they talk about this best of 2 attempts when it comes to testing. So there is already evidence in your national education policy that people are seeing probably some of this research around how we best learn. And we best learn when our assessment is stretched out over time, not in one moment. So here is some of that research. Dunlawski and Associates have proven that an hour spent on practice testing has a greater benefit than restudying the same material. So when I say stretching out the assessment, practice tests are an important part of that. So let me tell you what I used to do, okay? I used to give my students a test, and maybe it was called the Paris Peace Conference test. And here's what I would do. I would build these sections that you see there, true and false, fill in the blank, multiple choice. And that's how I organized my test, by the type of questions in each section. And then a student would complete this test, and then I would give them a percentage. You are 72% on all these things. And what is that supposed to mean? Like, it would be like you go to your doctor and you get a physical where they check your whole body out for how you are doing. And the doctor walks in and says, Myron, you are 72% healthy. Have a nice day. They'd be like, hold on. What, 72% healthy is not very valuable information. No, 72% isn't bad. No, how am I doing on my heart? How am I doing on my lungs? How am I doing on my cholesterol? I need some specific information. So here's what I do now. What I do now is I build my test by the standards or specific things I want my students to be able to demonstrate. Let me show you what I mean. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So my test is now split into sections. And the first section, for example, is I understand the geopolitical issues affecting the Paris Peace Conference. Then there are 3 sections in that part that are going to tell me how the student is doing in that area and tell the student how they're doing. Then the next thing I want them to do is to be able to evaluate how national expectations varied during the Paris Peace Conference. And there is a section on that. So everybody, there are 3 or 4 main standards. There are the first 3, and then the 4th one is where students combine 2 or 3 of the sections above. I loved this change because here's what I also did. I built a second version of the test. Now, some people might be, whoa, 2 tests? Yes. They are like a brother and a sister. They have different questions on each one, maybe different question formats, but they are identical in the sections and how much each section is worth. But the key piece here, everybody, is that I have split my tests by the learning outcomes I want my students to tackle and to show. Okay? So version 1, version 2. Now, let's be clear. Everybody takes version 1. And if you need it, you can do 1 or more sections on version 2. Just like the National Education Policy said, the best of 2 attempts, or everybody takes the main one, and they mentioned taking the second one if needed. That's what I'm doing in my classroom. Okay? Then, once everybody takes the first version of the test, I tried something else. They take the first version. I give them their scores after I grade the test. And then we just set that over on the corner of their desk, and everybody gets a tracking sheet. So Kim will sit down and she'll say, okay, how did I do on the first section? Let's look. 5. Okay, put a 5 in there. And as some people maybe saw last time, we're trying to talk about, I'm not sure I shared this last time. A 5 and a 6 are expert. A 3 and a 4 apprentice. A 1 and 2 are novice. So I want her to say, what do you think? Well, I'm in E for expert on that. I'm in the upper end. Okay. Would you like to revisit just that section? Have you learned something? Have you changed your thinking? And she might put an X there. Yes, I want that. Okay. Then she fills out the rest of this and she makes decisions on where she wants to have another visit. She puts in her scores from different sections. She answers a question, did you or did you not do your homework? How long did you spend preparing for this test? And are there adjustments you would make to your grade? And lastly, what are you predicting for yourself? Like, how do you think this course is going to end for you? So I see a good question from Mira. I didn't get the difference between version 1 and 2. Okay. Version 1 and version 2 have the same cover, the same sections. But version 1, under the map section, let's say, might have somebody draw a little map on version 1. On version 2, there is a map section. The map section is also worth 6, but maybe they have to identify a series of questions around the map that have to do with the same map. Different questions, same topic. Does that make sense? Monica is asking, is this a self-assessment? I am doing the assessment. This is them tracking how they're doing on each section. Mira and Monica, do those answers help you? Perfect. Yes, like a reflection. Any questions about this tracking sheet before I change the screen? Just so people can picture it, I am handing back this. Yes, the standards are identical in version 1 and 2. Kancha. Yeah. So then Fiza, you're asking, so the cross are where she takes the version 2. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by
Sorry,
so
can I just,
yeah.
like, so on her reflection sheet, when she marks out a cross, does that indicate that she wants to take the version 2 for those sections, or does that indicate that barring those, she wants to take the test for the other sections?
No, it includes that. I'm going to change that to a check mark next time.
Yeah, sorry, because she's done fairly well on the first one, but she still feels like she wants to do the version 2, which is great reflection in that sense.
Yeah. And is it Fiza?
Yes, that's me. Fiza.
So Fiza, this is what I found, and there's a reason why I put the X or the cross on 5 out of 6. Lots of students retest something when they're very, very close to being perfect, because it was just a little mistake. It was just a little thing they realized.
Great. Yeah, I just picked that one up. That's great reflection on the part of the student.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very good. And I have to tell everybody else this. I don't know if people do the same thing I do, but when I have a set of tests to give back to my students, I sometimes hold on to them as long as I can, and I talk and talk and talk and talk to them. Maybe you do the same thing. Why do I talk so much? Because students seem to be listening. But what do they really want? When you are holding a stack of tests, what do the students really want while they are watching you talk? Anybody going to answer? Yes. Yes, absolutely. He said their scores. Now it has changed. They go, Mr. Dueck, hand it back. I want to track how I did on each section. I want to reflect. That has been a huge change. So this is what I was talking about before. Students need to be active in their learning and their assessment. We are all diverse, and we're going to learn some things at different times. We need to be flexible to student needs and timelines. And yes, even in the national policy, there is evidence of these things being important for the direction of education in India. So with that, I want to show you some other things. I see there's still a few questions. When does the teacher have a role when a student who is a novice does not? That's a great question, Jayshree. What I have found is that when students don't need to take the whole test over again, they can take just a few sections. Novice students are far more likely to do it. That has been the biggest change I've seen. And I have had many, many novice students want to take at least one section over again. Then they build a little bit of confidence, and then they carry on, and maybe next time they do two. And Jayshree, further to your question, Vidushi had just said it. It's a growth mindset we're trying to develop. And maybe I talk with the parents saying, I want Kim to do at least one of these sections. She needs to. It's been a good thing. Just so people know, I talk a lot about how I structured these retests in my book. That is one other thing that people could read up a little bit more on it through ASCD. Some people ask me, Myron, what's the difference between formative and summative assessments? I have included quite a few resources in your handouts on this question. I'm going to share just one slide, but you probably have 6 or 7 there for your information. Do you want to know what my favorite way of saying what the difference is between formative and summative? It's this. The difference depends entirely on what you do with the data. It all depends on what you do with the data. You will notice when I have the 2 tests, if a student takes the first one and they're good, they say, I don't need to take the second one. Oh, okay. So your first test is summative. Yeah. If a student comes along and says, I like all my sections, I liked all of the sections on my test, except this one. Oh, all of the sections are summative, except that one, it's formative because I'm going to do something different. This is my favorite definition of telling the difference between formative and summative. It all depends what you do with the data. That's why I encourage teachers not to have a pile of, these are my formative assessments. These are my summative assessments. No, let's make decisions as we go along. If your whole class shows on a test that they are not understanding it, and you thought, no, this is my summative test. No, make it formative. How? By revisiting the topic. You are doing something different with the data. I hope that makes sense. So I have appreciated the questions and comments on the ongoing testing structure, and Vidushi has just noted in the chat room that we are going to share these handouts later. I'm going to move on to something else. Harnessing the power of struggle. Students need to be active in harnessing the power of struggle, and I want to share a little bit on this. In this article I was looking at, they suggested, remember, that we reframe our stressful thoughts, that failure is essential for growth. And I have been doing a lot of looking into desirable difficulties, and I welcome people in the chat room to let me know if they have bumped into the work of Bork and Bork on this topic, desirable difficulties. Desirable difficulties are seen a lot in sport. Desirable difficulties are defined as difficulties that encode and help us encode and improve our retrieval process in ways that support learning, support comprehension, and support remembering. Okay? Mira, I will tackle your question quickly. I always have this question about the definition of formative assessments. Is it defined by its nature, which means when it's done? Should formative assessments be marked? An assessment is formative if it is used during the learning process, not to describe the end of the learning process. So I'm going to choose the most summative test I can imagine. One of our provincial exams. Okay. If I give out some old provincial exams to my students to work on together in a team of 4, we are using it in a formative way. I'm not putting it in my grade book. I'm not keeping track of their scores. They are using it for learning. They are finding out how they are doing and discovering how their learning is going. That makes it formative versus summative. Wait till you see the documents that I gave to Vidushi about formative and summative, and you're going to see what I mean. And I encourage people to continue going in the chat room. I'll finish this piece on desirable difficulties. Bork and Bork have 4 suggestions as to how we can make difficulties desirable, make them good. Here is how they suggest it. The first one, varying the conditions of learning rather than keeping them constant and predictable. If we have our students sitting in the same classrooms, in the same rows, doing the same lessons every day, we are not encouraging desirable difficulties. Rather, sometimes we go outside, sometimes we have a speaker, sometimes we're doing a hands-on lab. The brain has difficulty switching modes, but we learn more. Interleaving instruction on separate topics rather than grouping. Here's the thing. People like topic A, then topic B, then topic C. No, one thing at a time. Okay. But the research suggests that if you take items of topic A and mix them with items of topic B, and we intersperse them, the brain doesn't like, it feels uncomfortable, but it learns far more. Because that's how life is. Life comes at us in different order and different things at different times. It's not this, then this, then this. Once again, the research suggests, everybody, that we space out our study sessions, not one day, one time. And their research also suggests that we should use tests as study events, not just as a final assessment. And this piece is very, very valuable. This is what I have been trying with those tests split by section, with a brother and a sister kind of test. So what is one thing we have tried with our students that you could do, even in remote environments? It's this. We are teaching our students the idea of desirable difficulties, that struggle helps you learn. And one of the things we've done is we have asked our students to then keep a journal, especially in math. What is a desirable difficulty you have experienced this week in math? What made it desirable? Or a question, how might you know when you have truly learned something as opposed to just performing well? Because everybody, the research around performance and actual learning, they are different things. Someone can look like they are doing well, but they're not. Yes, there will be lots on this and that, but look at what students write, okay? We collected these journals. That was my favorite coffee cup and I lost it. Anyway, we took a look for evidence that our students were talking about these things. And look at the very bottom of this journal. I know when I have truly learned it, when I can ask myself why we do it and when we do it. And I can put it to use in multiple situations. Interleaving topics. There's evidence there. We have found this to be very, very valuable for our math students. Because of our time, I'm going to take questions afterwards and I will hang around, I promise, okay? The sun is just coming up here anyway, it's beautiful. I have one more thing I want to share. One more thing, and it's short. I think we need to get students to own their own behaviors, okay? And what we mean by this is we are beginning to build structures. Look at this. We are getting students in our school to self-assess on how they are doing on important behavior elements. Let me make this bigger, such as personal responsibility, I prepare for all my quizzes and tests. I arrive on time. I stay on task. And then they rate themselves. Okay, Vidushi, I'll be very quick. I have included this in the handouts I gave to Vidushi because students can choose self-regulation or classroom and social responsibility. But here's the thing. It's time we ask them. How are you doing on your own behaviors? And there might be people out there, though, who go, Myron, I do not have my students in my classroom right now. Okay. How about this? With the American School of Monterrey, we have been building virtual learning self-management tools. With their students, we are going to send this out. We are already doing it, and I am going to include this for you. What is something you want to work on at home right now? Time management, task initiation. A student might say, I know. And I'm going to use check marks this time, not crosses. Time management and task initiation. Okay, so what is your goal? Well, my goal is to better schedule my time at home because I get playing video games and I lose track of time. Then the teacher talks to them about this, maybe virtual, maybe Zoom, maybe just reads this, and then the student can revise it. My teacher suggested I use a timer or an alarm and remind me of the schedule. Maybe I need to get up at 8 a.m. and start my schoolwork, not sleep in till noon. Then the teacher gives feedback on that page. You know what? That looks like an important step for you. Let's see how the first week goes and then we can talk. There's an opportunity here for Gershan to check off where he thinks he is. I understand my strengths. I can design a plan. I can monitor my progress. And I know I'm going through this quick, everybody, but you are going to get this. You can look at it closer and you can email me if you have questions. Lastly, students can put in by each week, how is their progress going? Okay, I've tried to get up at 8 a.m., but usually it's 10 o'clock. I'm going to try to get to bed sooner. This is something that we are going to try. So this is what I wanted to talk about, social emotional learning and resilience. We started just a few minutes late with people coming in and some of the introductions and me. So I hope that this has been some information for you on resilience. I hope that this definition of resilience is useful for you, the process of adapting. But here's how I want to leave this today. I hope that you look at some of the ideas of the 10 things to build resiliency through some of the tools I have shared. But probably more important, everyone, right now is this. You know how I talked about going to the Dominican Republic on a knee stroller? It wasn't fun. But I decided when I left on my journey, I was going to take a picture of every single person who helped me. Anybody who picked up my crutch, anybody who took my bag off of the conveyor at the airport. And here they are. We need to establish a supportive network. We need to look out for each other. Here are the people. So here's my point. Being resilient is also about being okay to ask for help. I I had all of these people helping me. So did I do it on my own? No. But that is why I believe Charney and Southwick say we need to surround ourselves with a good social network. So let's make sure, everybody, that we look out for each other out there also. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Myron. I think, firstly, thank you for sharing your personal story and personal experience on resilience. I think being vulnerable in such a and creating this sort of safe space for everybody to be able to share and interact on the chat was really, really helpful. And I think the best part is that you strike this balance between how you need to set up a culture of resilience as well as a toolkit for it, right? So that balance between both is really, really important. I think Geeta did have one question which was left to be answered, so we can take that quickly till everybody is filling the feedback form. She says, I've heard about not letting a student go to the next unit till she masters it, whereas her other peers go to the next unit. Isn't she going to lag behind for each topic? And what happens by the end of the year, as throughout she's going to be behind her friends? I've always not understood how it works. And this is, I think, a very common classroom problem that we definitely need to address.
Yeah, so I have been teaching for 22 years. I know very, very much, Vidushi, what that concern is. Here's the problem. I sometimes describe the problem like a train. The train is moving down the tracks. And if I get off I want to understand each station. If I get off at the first station to really understand it, while the rest of the people are on the train going to the next station, I might understand station 1 eventually, but I don't know that I'm ever going to be along on the journey with people to station 2, station 3, and station 4. Now, contrast that, Vidushi, to my welding shop. If I'm doing my learning on my own, I can go a lot slower to understand each step. So I think we have to be very conscious of and aware of what the circumstances are. Some fascinating research out there, which I've been reading about, is this. It's about the spacing effects in learning, and it's this. To achieve enduring retention, people must usually study information on multiple occasions. So I would say to the teacher, if there's a student who's not understanding it, this is what I think we should do. I think we should carry on to the second station with everybody on the train. But let's look for ways of putting some of station 1 into that learning process to revisit in little bits. I know that's challenging, but that's why I'm hesitant to say you must master this before moving on to that. I don't think that's how the world really works. I am going to cook a dinner tonight for friends. You know what, Vidushi? Every time I don't think I've mastered it, but I'm getting better. I hope that answers some of that question.
Definitely. I think that's what resilience is. You keep on trying, and I think teachers can actually start with what we started with in this presentation, right?
Yes.
What are the 3 things that we learn from our hobbies, and where did we end up doing mistakes? That's how we can actually start resiliency together. Thank you so much, Myron. Thank you, everybody.